The Yellow Speed Racing Dynamic Pro Coilovers here, fitting your 2005 to 2014 Mustang, in my opinion, guys, will be one of the nicest options currently available in the category for south of $1,000. The Dynamic Pros here will feature the electroplated monotube design for both front and rear dampers, will be 33-way adjustable, mind you, and will lower the car 2.5 inches or more, essentially allowing owners to slam the car to the ground. Now, price point will hover in that mid to low $900 ballpark, and the install, according to the site, is good enough to get a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the old difficulty meter, taking about 6 hours or less to complete from start to finish. But hang till the end of the video, guys, and we'll show you how it's done. So for those who don't know, Yellow Speed Racing is an overseas-based company who produces a plethora of suspension and braking components for a number of different applications. I'm talking pretty much every car under the sun. Now, the Dynamic Pros here in particular are going to be the company's entry-level coilover and will truthfully appeal to most road-going or daily-driven S197s out there who spend most of their time on the road, maybe an occasional track day mixed in for good measure. Now, Yellow Speed does offer more hardcore 2 and 3-way coils, but the pros here, for all intents and purposes, are going to be a good one-size-fits-most. Well, let's break these things down a little bit further, shall we? And the star of the kit, in my opinion, will be those monotube dampers, both front and rear, and again, both will be 33-way adjustable, which basically, in a nutshell, guys, will allow you to either soften or stiffen your ride quality depending on your preferences. Now, the damper itself is based on a 52mm shock body, has been electro-coated again to prevent any rust or corrosion, and will be loaded with a high-quality steel piston rod, upgraded seals, and even unique damper oil to help you prevent any foaming or cavitation if and when you do push these things pretty hard. Now, as far as your spring rates are concerned here for the S197, guys, you're gonna find a 10K spring for the front, 7K for the rear, riding on 6061 forged aluminum adjustable collars. Again, one of the big perks of a coilover is being able to adjust that ride height. Now, in particular, Yellow Speed does tell us that these coils will drop the car at least 2.5 inches or more, depending on your application. So to me, guys, that's more than enough for the S197, as 2 inches of drop will essentially tuck the tire. Any more than that will make the car pretty much undrivable. Last but not least here, guys, Yellow Speed does include these nice pillow ball mounts up front here in addition to your adjustable caster camber plates. Again, a nice addition for the price, south of $1,000. Definitely put these in the entry-level range. Dynamic Pros do include a rather unique time span of warranty, 15 months to be exact, in case you run into any issues. However, now we want to show you the process of bolting these puppies up to your S197 and showing you some ride height examples as well. So without further ado, here is that detailed walkthrough we promised you, in addition to a quick tool breakdown.
Tools used for this install: 19mm wrench, 18mm wrench, 15mm wrench, two 14mm wrenches, a lug wrench, 18mm socket, 17mm socket, 15mm socket, 14mm socket, 13, 12, and 10mm socket, 6mm Allen key, 5.5mm Allen key, push pin removal tool, tape measure, 1/2 inch impact, 3/8 inch impact, various extensions, ratcheting 18mm, ratcheting 19mm.
All right, so after you get the wheel off, we need to take the brake caliper off of the rotor, and that is going to require a 12mm socket. One on the top, one on the bottom. You're going to make sure you have a bungee cord or a caliper hanger bracket for this, just to keep your no tension on the brake line itself. Next, we're going to be taking off the speed sensor push pin, like that. And then we're going to be taking off the bracket for the brake line itself. You're going to make sure you save this hardware because you are going to be reusing it. And now next we're going to be removing the nut for the sway bar end link, and that is an 18mm. All right, so now that we're on top of the strut towers with the hood open, you can see it's held on by 4 13mm nuts, and we're going to be loosening all of them, but finger tight the two closest to the panel. All right, so now that we have the top nuts on the strut tower loosened, there is a little bit of play, so we can take our sway bar end link out. And next we are going to be removing the bolts that attach the strut assembly to the spindle itself. All right, so we're going to be using an 18mm socket. And be sure to keep your hardware for the new struts. And let your spindle rest just like that. All right, so the next step is to remove those hand-tight nuts on the top strut tower. There's one there. There's one. Now with those removed, we can remove the stock strut assembly. Now to complete this on the driver's side, you just do the same steps we just completed. All right, now that we have our factory strut assembly out of the way, we are going to be removing our factory sway bar end links. They are on by an 18mm and a 8mm on the back side of it. I am using a ratcheting wrench to make my life a little easier. And we'll put the 8mm on the back side of it. All right, now that we have our factory strut and our new coilover on the bench, we can make our initial adjustments. This collar right here, we are going to loosen up the lock collar with the supplied spanner wrenches. Bringing that down. And as you can see the difference, very skinny in profile, much lighter, and you can see the drop right there. I don't want to go that drastic. You can if you want. We're going to be lowering this collar right here to lengthen our coilover. And while you're here, you can make sure that your spindle mount and your top hat are equal to the factory strut. All right, now we're ready to install in the car. All right, now we're going to be installing our new coilover into the strut tower. And we are going to hand tighten these nuts on the top. Don't forget your strut tower brace. And we'll be reusing our factory hardware for the spindle mount. Now we're going to put our bottom bolt in as well. Remember to crank these down to 148 foot-pounds. Now we're going to be installing our new sway bar end link. It's going to be the same orientation as the factory one. We're going to use the same hole on the bottom of the sway bar itself. And our jam nuts are not tight yet. We're going to tighten them while in place. Looks like I could use a little bit more length. Like that. And now they are 19mm nuts on the back side and a 6mm hex head to hold it in place so you're not spinning on your end link. All right, I am going to be using an 18mm ratcheting wrench for this, just to make my life a little bit easier. So we're going to be tightening up our end links, and then we're going to tighten up our jam nut and make sure that these are tight as well. And now we're going to move on to the bottom of the sway bar end link.
All right, now we're gonna be tightening up our jam nuts on our adjustable sway bar end link here. And this requires two 14mm wrenches. There's one on the top and there's one on the bottom. All right, with that tight, we can move up to the top and tighten up those nuts. All right, now that we're back on top, we can tighten down these 4 nuts, and they are 14mm. All right, now we're gonna place our caliper back onto the assembly. All right, now we're gonna reinstall our brake bracket to the new strut. And don't forget to reattach your push pin to the bottom of the coil over there. All right, that's gonna wrap it up for the passenger side. Repeat all those steps on the driver's side. So let's head to the rear now. All right, now moving to the rear, we're gonna remove both wheels. All right, now on this side, as well as the driver's side, you have a 10mm bolt holding a bracket on for your brake line and wheel speed sensor. We're gonna be removing this because we're gonna be dropping our axle a little bit and we don't wanna put any stress on these lines. And let that hang just like that. All right, now moving into the trunk, we are going to peel back the carpeted liner right here and reveal the top of our shock and the nut. We're going to remove that with a 17mm. And you're going to repeat that on the driver's side. All right, so now we are going to be removing the upper sway bar mounts, and these are aftermarket, so yours are going to look a little different. All right, now with both sides loosened, we can pull our bolts and swing this out of the way. All right, so the next step is to remove your factory springs. I'm gonna pull down on this side of the rear, and they should just pop out. Now be sure to save your factory rubber isolator. We're gonna be reusing that on our new springs. Now moving over to the passenger side, same process. This one slipped out a little easier, and save this for your new springs. All right, so the next step is to remove our 15mm bolt that attaches our factory shock. And you will be reusing this hardware. So this right here is an adjustable panhard bar. When lowering your vehicle any height, it's really important to make sure your geometry is correct. And you can pick up yours here at AmericanMuscle.com. All right, now that we have all the rear suspension taken off, you can see the difference between the springs in the back. These are completely adjustable. There's a lock ring here, and you can lower and raise that spring perch. Now I have a tape measure on the table here as well. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a measurement from this gold piece to the bottom of the perch. I'm gonna make sure that they're the same on the other side as well. I'm gonna go for about 2 inches. Just like that. This needs to come up a little bit. That. Now we'll use our spanner wrenches supplied by Yellow Racing to lock these in place. All right, on to the next. And now we will be reusing our rubber isolators from the top of the factory springs. Now moving on to our shocks, you can see the difference in height. These are adjustable as well. You can lower your mount here, bring your collar down as well. Now these are adjustable on the car as well. You can get your final adjustments when they are up there. We are going to bring these up just a little bit more and use our tape measure again. I'm going from the center of the bolt hole to the top of the shock itself. Got 18.5 inches and 18.5 inches there. So let's go to the car and install them. All right, now that you have all the rear uninstalled, it's time to install all your new parts. All right, now we're gonna install our new yellow speed racing shocks. Give it a little love tap. All right, and then we're gonna move on to the passenger side. All right, we're moving on to the passenger side. I'm just gonna get this bolt started. All right, so now we're gonna tighten these guys up using our 15mm factory hardware. Now we're raising our rear axle to get our sway bar back into place. This could be done on the ground with a good floor jack. All right, moving on to the passenger side. And then we're gonna go ahead and tighten these up. All right, next we're going to be putting our brake line bracket on with a 10 mil. And you're gonna do this on the driver's side as well. All right, as you can see, there is quite a distance here for the shock and the mount in the trunk. What we're gonna do now is put the wheel on, lower the vehicle down slowly until we can get a nut on this, and then lower the vehicle down all the way and tighten that up. So let's get started. We're gonna be doing this on both the passenger and the driver's side. All right, now we're slowly lowering the car and we're guiding our shocks through the shock tower. All right, now that we're on the inside, we are going to put our new bushing and hardware onto the top of our shock. You will need to use an Allen head and socket. Now what I'm doing is I'm holding the top of the shock with a 5mm Allen key, and I'm tightening it down with a 19mm. And then you're gonna repeat this on the driver's side. All right, that's gonna wrap up my install of the Yellow Speed Racing Dynamic Pro Sport Coilover Kit. You can get yours at AmericanMuscle.com.